First off, I'd like you to tell our audience who it is that I'm speaking with today.
Sweet. Okay, my name is Heather. I play in a band called Thousand Knives from Halifax, Nova Scotia. We play metalcore. Yeah, what else do you want to know?
Well,
My favorite color is blue. Definitely not blue. I can't believe I lied to you in the first minute and a half.
damn, how could you? I feel betrayed already. Like, I don't know if I can take anything that you say for the rest of this interview seriously now.
You know what? That's probably a good thing because it's probably all going to be a lie.
Fair enough. Well, so I guess your first release, the single Casualty, this song came out in 2021, so you've been active at least since that year, though I'm assuming perhaps maybe a year or more before that song was released.
That's pretty close. We actually didn't, we probably recorded that a few months before it was released. I joined the band like a couple months before that. They already had the songs written. They were actually a band called Casualty before I joined. I think they had a different singer, and it was the three of them. It was Orion, Drake, and Tucker. And I was in the mall one day, and I went into Boathouse, and I saw Tucker working, and we were chatting. The topic of bands came up, and he was like, he told me about the project, and they were looking for a singer, and I was like, well, hit me up if you're interested in me singing, and they did, like, almost immediately, and then I wrote lyrics to the 5 songs, I guess, they already had written, and then we jumped right into recording a couple weeks after that, I think, with Michael Bowers, and then all of a sudden it was on Spotify.
Wow, sweet. Okay, that's awesome. I always find it really interesting how the names of bands can change over the years. So it's cool that the band was called Casualty before, I guess, and then you wrote the song Casualty, and then you changed the name, I guess, before that happened.
They were thinking about changing the name before I started.
Okay.
I guess because there was another band called Casualty, or maybe it was too close to the Casualties.
Right.
The Thousand Knives actually is the name of a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Oh, for real? That was actually going to be my next question, was where did that name come from?
I read your mind. One of my many talents. But no, it was decided actually before I joined the band. It's also a good thing that I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, because it landed, I guess. And now we all carry the Thousand Knives card around with us in our wallets.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, that's great. So your sound as you
being a nerd is cool these days.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's I remember, I don't know if you have the same experience as me, but I remember when I was a kid being a super total nerd and getting really, ostracized and bullied for that, and then growing up and seeing all this nerd culture stuff just totally take over the mainstream. It feels man, why couldn't this happen when I was a kid,
Feels like you got the shit under the stick. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was ever bullied. I never went to school. My parents didn't believe in school.
Oh, for real?
So I didn't really maybe have the same bullying experiences that everyone else did. But kids weren't nice to me because I didn't go to school, so maybe that counts for something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely counts for something. That's a whole other can of worms, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. It's never linear. Anyway,
No.
I'm sorry, what was your next question?
No, that's
Can't cut
okay.
you off.
That's okay. Well, you mentioned earlier that you play metalcore. Your sound is rooted in metalcore and hardcore, but it definitely has a bit of an extreme edge to it. I think based on like what I've heard from you guys, it bleeds a little bit into power violence and some other associated genres. So, are there any bands that you'd point to as having been an influence on developing your sound in the earlier days of your band, leading into where you are now?
Yeah, this is interesting because we all have really different backgrounds, and by backgrounds I mean musical interests.
Right.
I think Orion, who is no longer in the band, but was definitely like he wrote probably most of the music up until, yeah, up until he left. I guess this was only a recent thing.
Okay.
He was. Anyway, he's got a different project on the go, and he really wanted to start a thrash band, and was like in school and had a hard time managing both. So it's all good. We're all on good terms. We all still play shows together and shit.
Sweet. That's always good to hear.
But oh yeah, he's still a homie. He's still in all the group chats.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but so yeah. I'm gonna think about this one for a sec.
That's okay.
Basically, Tucker's like super into like black metal and like slam. I think he's our drummer. Orion pulls from a lot of like early 2000s metalcore. He loves Misery Signals.
Definitely understand that.
Then my brother is our other guitar player, and he likes a lot of hardcore, but he also likes a lot of metalcore too. I'm like, hey, what does he listen to? Nowadays, I think our musical interests are pretty similar. My background is all my influences are like rooted in hardcore, I guess. Yeah.
Sweet. So you're, I mean, when I listen to your music, it's I definitely feel like all those influences are coming through, except for maybe the black metal and slam that you mentioned earlier, which is so funny to me because I feel like when you're talking about extreme metal, those two styles are on complete opposite sides of the spectrum. So it's cool that he's into both.
He doesn't really write anything.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think you kind of, as a drummer, you kind of have to bow to what the guitar is doing a little bit. I mean, he loves blast beats, and he still just sticks them in there. So, I think that's kind of. I shouldn't say he doesn't write anything because he obviously writes the drum parts for it.
Well, yeah.
But I think as a drummer, you kind of have to kind of follow what the guitar is doing. You don't really have much influences to in the final product.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Vision. Yeah.
I mean, being a drummer myself, like, in my own bands, it definitely follows that sort of way where it's like, the guitarist or the bassist comes up with the riffs, and then it's like, well, I just kind of come up with whatever I think goes around that, I mean, a lot of heavy music is really just like that.
Yeah. Kind of the same sort of, the same few drum, drum riffs? What do you call them?
We call what, sorry?
Like, what do you call drum riffs? Like, what's the equivalent of a guitar riff in drum terms?
I always just use, like, a drum beat is what I would call it. But, like, I don't really know if that's the technical term or not. Maybe I should know that as a drummer, but I don't know.
That's also what I call it, so,
I mean, like, when you think about it, it's like, well, you have, like, the different types of drum beats, right? You have, like, a blast beat, and then you have a skank beat, and then you have a disco beat, and all these different types, and it's like, well, I mean, if that's what we're calling this type of drum beat, I'm just going to use that in place of riff when talking about construction of a song,
I'm with you. I'm following.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that said, your first EP, which was self-titled, came out in 2021, and you followed it up with your first full-length record, Incessant Violent Thoughts, which dropped in September of last year, 2023. So, how would you say that these two releases compare to one another? Like, in what ways do they differ? And also, what's the reception to the new album been like?
The reception to the new album has been pretty overwhelming. It's always surprising, I think, to like we have our own ideas of what the good songs are. You know, like our single was Bloodlet, because we were like, and that's the banger.
Right.
Which I still believe is the banger.
It's a great song.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so I guess the reception's always different. I had a sneaking suspicion that Spent was going to do really well. But right now, like, Feed is fucking murdering everything else in terms of, like, streams. Feed is our most listened to song by a landslide.
Really?
Yeah. So it's always the sleepers, I think. But yeah, how do they compare? That's a good question. I definitely think we pulled from like a wider influence, I guess, wider influence base, like more genres with IVT. I think the songs are really diverse. It also, like, there's a couple songs on there that both our guitar players, like, collaborated on, and then there's a couple songs that each of them wrote, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's, like, a lot of diversity as a result there. I actually can't comment too much on the writing of the EP because I wrote the lyrics to songs that were already written.
Right, you had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. But I definitely think, yeah, I mean, it's all about evolving and it's all about trying to figure out what works the best. And I think we're finding our stride a little bit more. We actually just finished recording an EP as well.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Sweet.
It is called When Nothing Feels Like Home, and it's going to be released. I'm trying not to say when it's going to be released because we haven't actually got the masters back yet. But
are we going to get some exclusive information here right about now?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say here, actually. Other than there's 5 songs. They're all way heavier. Okay.
There's
like 3 are like way heavier.
That's impressive because like Incessant Violent Thoughts is already pretty heavy for a metalcore album.
Yeah.
You know, like when I think of metalcore, it's like I'm usually thinking of stuff from like the mid 2000s, the stuff that was really popular around then, like August Burns Red, Devil Wears Prada, As I Lay Dying. But of course, I feel like you guys are probably drawing more from the 90s era metalcore, like the OG metalcore. I definitely hear a lot more of that in your stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely like I know Converge was one of the favorites for sure, but it's it's kind of hard to tell. I think genre is such a funny thing.
Totally.
Like, to hear you say that's what you like hear when that's what you hear as metalcore. I think I would maybe define it differently. No, I don't think you're wrong. Like, I'm definitely not saying you're wrong or I'm right. Like, it's just one of those things that's like, it's totally subjective depending on, how your music taste developed and how your perspective on that developed.
Totally. I mean, I think it's very contentious, I mean, we're all fans of like a really niche subculture and subgenres of music, and that necessitates people being just like really insufferable nerds about it. And, I mean, that's just part of the charm of being into this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I think you really nailed it. Yeah, and I think us calling ourselves metalcore is sort of like, I wouldn't allow us to be called hardcore, and then everything else is like, I don't know, like I wouldn't call us metal either, because it's like, it's not.
Really? Okay, so wait, what's the story there? Why wouldn't you allow Thousand Knives to be called hardcore?
Because we incorporate hardcore elements, but as someone who like came from the pretentious hardcore side of things, I'm not pretentious, not as pretentious, I think, as I once was, but I still, yeah, I like, to me, like, Cap and Race, like, that's hardcore.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's a very, and then some like more modern hardcore bands would be like, I don't know, Backtrack, and like, I don't know, put me on the spot here.
Well, I mean, I think I get what you're saying. You know, there's different breeds of hardcore, but it all gets referred to just as hardcore. But it's really hard to like differentiate what exactly a person is talking about when they just say hardcore, because there's like, there's hardcore that sounds a lot more like heavy and like beat down kind of stuff, where it's just like breakdowns and like chugs all the time. But then there's hardcore where it's like more like straight up hardcore punk, like a band like Cell Death, for example. I'm sure you know those guys from PEI. Like that's like, in my mind, that's like a hardcore punk band, but they get called hardcore.
Yeah, and it's it's sort of like we're splitting hairs. It's just kind of heavy music.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, it's all just like loud, abrasive shit that like is meant to be listened to when you're pissed off, I guess.
And it's like I find like people who like the loud abrasive stuff kind of like most of the loud abrasive stuff.
Yes. I am one of those.
That's how I got here. Yeah. Yeah, my dad bought me an AFI CD, Black Sails in the Sunset.
Oh yeah.
When he was like away for work one time, and I never went back.
That's it's always interesting, I think, finding out what someone's first heavy band or like heavy artist or heavy CD was when they were growing up.
Yeah. This is actually a funny one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I always, my mom, like I love Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin was like one of my first favorite bands.
Mm-hmm.
My mom loves Led Zeppelin, and like stuff like The Doors and Black Sabbath and AC/DC. Like we were a big AC/DC family.
The classics.
The classics. And then like my dad was a big Beatles guy, and my favorite Beatles song to listen to was like Helter Skelter, because it was the fucking heavy one.
Absolutely. Love that song.
So I always had, I've always just kind of had this like natural gravitation towards heavy things. And my dad bought me AFI, Black Sails in the Sunset. Still today one of my favorite albums of all time. But the first time I listened to it, I was fucking terrified. I was like, what is this? Like the first song is deadly. It's like a gang chant. It's got really good like vocal rhythm and like big heavy tom beats, and like I would get through the first song and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is sick. And then the second song would come on, and I'm like, it's where like Davey like first like screams and the music gets faster, and it's like the drums are faster, and I was like, what is this? And then I put it away for years, like the physical CD, and it wasn't until I think I probably started listening to like Rise Against and like kind of the heavier, I don't know, Rammstein.
Right. Yeah.
That I was like, then I went back to visit AFI and was like, oh, I get it now. I couldn't tell you how old I was around this. I know that Black Sails came out in 1999. I don't know really when my dad bought it for me, but and then that sort of set me down the path of like that led me to where I am.
Yeah, I love hearing that stuff, and honestly, it's kind of funny. I feel like my own experience with that was like a very similar trajectory, where like my dad was a really big fan of two bands, ABBA and also the Stampeders. I don't know if you know them.
Okay. No.
Okay, they're like, this is a total aside, but I have always have to tell this story when
No,
people
I
bring
want
this
to know.
up.
Yeah.
The Stampeders, they're like a Canadian classic rock band from like the 60s and 70s. They're from Alberta, I think, and most of their music
Okay.
is
Yeah.
like pretty soft, I guess, for the most part, like for classic rock. They wrote the song "Sweet City Woman." That's them.
Oh.
Yeah. But they have this one song called Wild Eyes, which is like, it has such a gnarly guitar riff, and it's like way heavier and louder and darker sounding than any of their other material. And every time my dad played that song in the car when I was growing up, I like went nuts for that track. And similarly with all the ABBA stuff that he played, it was like all the darker songs were the ones that I really liked. You know, like Money, Money, Money. Voulez-Vous has that sick guitar riff, you know, so that kind of stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
as I got older, it was just, sorry.
What's the one that's like the Man After Midnight?
Yeah, it's Gimme, Gimme, Gimme.
Yeah, that one's fucking sick.
That's a great song. Yeah. And then from there on, it was just kind of like, well, I need to get heavier, you know, I need to get louder, more angry. And it just kind of devolved into the degenerate I am today from there.
Devolved.
Yeah. So,
Devolved to caveman.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, you know, now we're listening to black metal and death metal and sludge and all that stuff. Don't think my dad ever intended for that to happen, but it happened. Okay.
Like, not like this.
Yeah, no,
Not like this, son.
definitely not. Now, that being said, I think, you know, our parents being into that kind of stuff in the region that we're from, you know, like I'm from Newfoundland, you're from Nova Scotia. I feel like classic rock and stuff that's adjacent to that is a big deal in this part of the country. And when I think of this area, I feel like for a lot of people, heavy music just doesn't really get associated with it, Atlantic Canada or the Maritimes at all. And
Yeah.
when people talk about Canadian heavy music, the Maritimes usually gets left out of the discussion entirely, just ignored. And there's obviously a lot more focus on provinces like, you know, Ontario and Quebec, or cities like Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, just because they have a higher population, so the scenes there are typically a lot bigger with more fans and more bands. So I guess I'm asking, what challenges does a band from the East Coast, especially one that plays heavy and aggressive music like you guys, face when it comes to trying to get your music out there and, you know, to go on tour and just trying to build a bigger audience?
Oh, I love this. It's funny though because I don't know if you've heard of the Pavilion.
I have not.
Okay, so the Pavilion was an all-ages venue in the middle of the Halifax Common. So we have this giant park that's just like grass in the middle of Halifax. And there used to be this rectangular concrete building with a skate park outside that maybe, I don't exactly remember the capacity of it, but I feel like it was around 200, maybe 300, maybe that's too big. But we used to get crazy tours here. Bands used to love coming here. Like, I don't know, I saw Backtrack there, I saw Ceremony, I saw Code Orange Kids.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I saw, yeah, like Dead and Divine. Oh man, there was like, the Architects. Yeah, like big tours used to come here. And sell those places out. Like, I mean, like I started going to shows there probably when I was about 14. And like, we used to have a great local scene. I don't know if you've ever heard of the band Risky Business, but they toured extensively. I think they may have even toured Europe. They did really well.
I have heard of them. That name does sound familiar.
Yeah, they were Halifax's hardcore golden boys for a long time.
Right.
They're all in their 40s. Actually, Ian Hart's probably close to 60 now.
Damn.
But yeah, so we used to have a pretty banging scene. There was like a period that the Pavilion ended up closing officially. It was owned by the city, so there was some, after the promoter. Anyway, I'm not really sure of the goings on, but essentially, like, they stopped having shows there, and it was actually just recently demolished, like I think a couple months ago.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, but it really stopped having shows, like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. Anyway, so that kind of killed the all ages scene, which I think, anyway, and I'm sure just with, the economy or whatever, like, it just made it harder for those bigger bands to come out here and do well. So I think it kind of killed the heavy scene for a while. It's definitely after COVID, it's starting to pop off again. Comeback Kid, we played actually with Comeback Kid here at Cancer Rats, like, when was that? October 2022? It was our 7th show. But we played to 900 people.
Damn, that's a crazy crowd. Holy moly.
Yeah, it was nuts. But it was just really great to see all these people. Like, it was Comeback Kids, like, first time back here in about 13 years. And Cancer Rats kind of always do well here.
Yeah. They're Canadian sweethearts. Like, everyone loves them.
Yeah. They also, like used to tour out here a lot when nobody else did.
Yep.
So I think they, like, really just created, like, good, solid fan base. They also, like, did, like, bands used to come here and, like, tour to, like, crazy small towns like Wolfville and Kentville and, like to Pictou County and stuff. Like, that would never happen these days. Like, no one would ever. I doubt you could get, like, 10 people in those places.
Yeah.
Nowadays. But anyway, challenges right now. I actually feel like we're doing pretty well. Like, we have an all ages venue here that I think the cap is around 120.
Radstorm.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
That's right. And there's been, like, several sold out shows. Like, hit cap before the bands even started.
Wow.
Yeah, it's doing really well. Like, we played a show last year, us, like, Thousand Knives, Hell's Reach, and maybe Pale Lake played with Prowl from Montreal and Rough Ground from France, and we had over 300 people at the SeaWorld, which I think the cap is like 350. So we almost hit capacity, which is, like, pretty big.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the challenge for us is, like, mostly touring. We live, we've been to Cape Breton, like, PEI, we've done New Brunswick. We do really well in Moncton. We love Moncton. Playing at Zeros, it's this arcade bar. It's the most fucking fun ever. Anyway, we made a bunch of friends there. They're great.
Sweet.
Our friends, we just played there with Johnny Deathwish last month, and man, those guys are the best. It's a great time. Yeah, the challenge is kind of getting to the other provinces. Having a vehicle, I actually just bought a van recently, so we're planning on going to Quebec and Ontario in the coming year.
Sweet. Congratulations on the van. That's definitely not a small thing to purchase.
Thanks, it's a piece of shit.
I feel like every first band vehicle kind of has to be a piece of shit, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's actually my personal vehicle. I
Right.
sold my sports car to buy. That's sort of a true story. But yeah, that's kind of, like everyone has jobs. It's hard to everyone also plays in other bands. Like both Ian and Tucker play in Hell's Reach, and then Miles, our new guitar player, plays in Fear and Filth. And so managing everyone's tour schedule and then also allowing, getting the vacation time to go do shows in other provinces is really tricky. But yeah, that 13-hour drive or whatever it is to Montreal is a huge boner killer.
Oh yeah, it's rough for sure. But I will say because I'm running this account and doing this thing for Newfoundland because I'm from there, but I actually live in Montreal currently. Yeah, I've been here for 7 years, and I can tell you that if you haven't played in Montreal yet, you guys would do really, really well here because the hardcore scene in Montreal is absolutely popping off. It's nuts. It's the total dominant style of music here, and there's a million hardcore bands that would all probably trip over themselves to try and play with you. So just a heads up for the future.
Yeah, we actually want to play Turbo House pretty bad. Most of us went to Montreal Madhouse.
Oh yeah.
Back in February and had the time of our lives. I went last year actually too. But yeah, we man, that's definitely. We've got some pals in Quebec City too that we're gonna try. We're prioritizing Quebec right now. I think we're gonna try and do a 4-day Quebec run this year, and then hope to hit Ontario.
Sweet.
Maybe in the spring. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good call because Quebec is kind of the nexus for heavy music in Canada. It's the sweet spot in between West and East that all these bands from the East Coast can hit, but all these bands from the West Coast can also hit if they're doing a tour. And yeah, a city like Montreal, it's just got so much infrastructure and a built-in audience for this style of heavy music. I mean, it's the people here live and breathe that stuff, So definitely worth it to come up here for sure. That being said, you're actually going on tour very soon for the Smoke the Rock tour. So are you guys excited for that?
Man, we cannot wait to smoke the rock. Yeah, man, this is huge. I've wanted to play Newfoundland for a long time. I've heard the lore about Newfoundland shows. I dated a Newfoundlander for a couple of years.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Who was also into hardcore. And,
right.
Yeah, I've wanted to get over there really bad, and this opportunity came up, and we were just jumping on it as fast as we could. Yeah, we've got 2 shows in Corner Brook. The same day, we're playing the Retro, I think.
Yeah, it's the Retro Arcade and Sports Bar.
I knew it was. I love arcade bars. I love that that's a thing.
They're sick.
I can't wait. I'm yeah. It's also awesome because we don't have to load out. We can just leave everything set up and then play another show a couple hours later. We're doing it, in all ages and 19 plus there. But yeah, can't wait. This is also this crew of people that we're going with is going to be the best. We are we've done some tours with Fear and Filth already. We love them so much that we adopted one of their guitar players. And he's doing double duty for us. But yeah, we just had the time of our lives with them last year. They're all incredible human people. They're all incredible human people. And yeah, never laughed so hard in our whole lives. And yeah, stoked that we get to do that with them. And then Hell's Reach adds another super fun dynamic. Like I mentioned, my brother Ian also sings for Hell's Reach, and he plays guitar in Dozeners, so he's going to be doing double duty as well. And Tucker plays drums in both my band and Hell's Reach. So it's going to be a busy week. Um, but we actually set it up so that our sets are like back to back, so there's like minimal changeover. Not that that's going to be the tiresome part for them. I'm sure the tiresome part, especially, is going to be playing 4 sets in one day in Cornerwork.
True.
But it's, man, like, this group of people is going to be insane. Like, some of our best friends, just like, I think there's 13 of us going.
Oh, that's a good crew.
Oh yeah, it's going to be crazy. We have an Airbnb actually in St. John's. I can't remember where it is. It's just up the hill from George Street, I know that. But it's one big house, and we're all staying there for like 3 days.
Oh my god, if you got
it has a hot tub.
what? Okay, if you got an Airbnb just up from George Street, you got like the perfect location. You're like right in the heart of downtown. Minimal walking required. Means you can get as loaded as you want, which is sick. So
yeah. There's a few of us that are, I'm not going to say straight edge. I'm sober. I don't drink or
okay.
Do drugs or anything. I'll smoke a million cigarettes with them, but just for fun. That's what I do when everyone else is drinking.
Even if you're sober, going to George Street and just like observing the wild, drunken like behavior and insanity of people is like enough entertainment for a million years.
Totally. I can also drive them home afterwards. There's a couple of us that don't drink that will. We've got 2 Toyota Highlanders with 7 seats. We're just gonna cart everybody around in. But last time I was on George Street, it was probably like maybe like 3, 4, 5 years ago. It was definitely before the pandemic. We walked into a bar and there was, I don't know if it was 2 bridal parties or 1 bridal party that had turned on each other.
Oh my god.
There was like a fight happening. Like, it was mostly yelling, and then we went into the bar, and then 40 minutes later, I think we came out of the bar and went to another bar, and the whole, like, I don't know, there was at least 10 women. Like, a couple of them had the veil or whatever on their head, like, and like sashes and stuff, and they were full on brawling.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yes, they were full on fucking brawling in the middle of George Street. There was a couple cops there, and they were men, and I don't think the men are allowed to touch women, so they were like, "Come on now, girls, like, settle down," and the girls are just like fucking ripping each other's hair out, like.
Yeah, that sounds like an average night on George Street, to be honest.
It was wild. I could believe it. Can't wait to go back.
Hell yeah. I also will say, didn't mean to imply anything earlier, because like I also don't really drink all that much. Like, I'm not fully sober, but I'm not like much of a partier, so I usually end up being the designated driver, and I'm like totally chill with that. So like I feel where you're coming from on that one.
I feed off the energy.
Yes.
I love watching my friends like get fucking hammered and have the time of their life, and I feed off that energy and also have the time of my life. But yeah, can't wait for St. John's. Also, we're playing the Rock House. We keep getting messages on Instagram from people who are like, "Man, people are gonna die at your show. You guys are gonna have the most violent show ever." Like, we've gotten a few of them now, and I was just like, every time I get one, I'm like, man, I can't wait to play the Rock House.
Man, I hope, like, okay, I was about to say I hope someone dies. No, I don't actually hope someone dies, but like, you know what I mean. It's just like I hope people go crazy.
I hope somebody gets their nose broken. Like,
yeah.
I hope it's not me, but I hope somebody gets their nose broken.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's got to be, people have to go nuts, and especially since, like, the way that this fest is kind of set up, the Friday night in St. John's, while you guys are playing in Corner Brook, is more of, like, a hard rock and heavy metal sort of night, and then the Saturday when you guys are playing, it's mostly other, like, metalcore and hardcore adjacent bands, so I feel like all the people who are into that style of music are going to come out, and those people, like, let me tell you, I was talking earlier about how the Montreal hardcore scene has been popping off after COVID,
Yeah.
but the Newfoundland hardcore scene is like crazy. I swear to God, there's like a new hardcore band forming every week. Shows happening
Love to hear it.
all the time. It's crazy, like, especially from some of the younger folks. Like, the younger people who go to these shows, they're so dedicated and just like off the wall crazy in the best way. So like I hope that they come out and see you guys and they have a great time.
Man, I hope so too. We got asked to play this Sunday too, like the all ages.
Yep.
We weren't able to do it because a couple of us had to come back, like be home on Monday for work. So there's a couple of people having to fly back, and some of my band members are those people. Really bummed we're not going to get to play any of the all ages in St. John. So I guess it just means we'll have to come back.
I was just about to say, that just means that you got to come back and make up for that in the future.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I guess.
Totally into that.
I guess my last question then is, what can people expect from you at the festival, either in Corner Brook or in St. John's?
We got a ton of awesome merch. We are so jazzed about. A friend of mine anyway, this I believe is his full-time job. A friend of mine, Kieran, he's Irish, and he's been making sick designs. What's his Spearhead is maybe his Instagram.
Okay.
Anyway, we finally were able to get a couple designs from him, and they are deadly.
I saw them posted on your Instagram stories, and yeah, they look pretty sick.
Oh, man, so excited. That was top of mind because obviously I'm really excited about it. And we added 3 new songs to our set list that are going to be off this EP. Like I mentioned earlier, they're heavy as fuck.
Unreleased.
Unreleased.
Sweet.
Unreleased. There's like tons of opportunity in these songs. We sort of revisited our set list when Miles joined the band, and we all kind of went through it, and we were like, okay, these are the songs that we really like playing. Like, these are the songs that we we feel the best when we're playing, and then also we get the best response from the people at the shows. And they're the heavy ones and they're the fast ones, obviously. So yeah, I can't tell you what the set list is at the moment.
Of course.
I don't remember. But yeah, expect some new tunes, and hopefully expect your nose to get broken. Be prepared for it. Yeah, maybe don't expect it. Prepare. What's that saying? Like, prepare for the worst.
Expect the best.
The best. That's. Yeah, we love violence. What can I say?
There you go.
We like to incite violence.
I love it. Well then, that's all the questions I had for you. Is there anything else that you would like to add here at the end?
Well, yeah. Keep your eyes peeled for our EP. Not going to be in the summer. We haven't quite submitted everything to our label yet. So it's kind of in the works. I think we're just waiting on some artwork. But yeah, it's definitely coming in the next couple months. And in my opinion, this EP blows everything else out of the water.
Awesome. In that case, I can't wait to hear it.
When Nothing Feels Like Home, coming to a Spotify near you.
Great title as well, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, I guess if that's everything, then Heather, I want to say thank you so much for speaking to me here on the Heavy NFLD official podcast. Really, really appreciate it. For all of the people who are listening, I just want to reiterate that you can catch Thousand Knives along with Hell's Reach and Fear and Filth on Friday, July 19th in Corner Brook, where they'll be performing an all-ages show at Retro Sports Bar and Arcade, which starts at 5 p.m., and then again that night for a 19 plus bar show at Retro also, which starts at 10 p.m. And then on the East Coast, you can catch them in St. John's at the Rock House on Saturday, July 20th. And tickets for that are on sale now, so if you want to go, make sure you get them.